Welcome back, everybody. The textbook, Library Programs and Services, The Fundamentals by Greenwell and Evans, starts the technology chapter by pointing out that technology and libraries are a mix of programs and services. We provide technology services such as public access computers, scanners, printers, Wi-Fi, sometimes laptops, hotspots, or other technology to check out, for example. We have streaming services, research databases, and online learning services. And then we also provide programs like information literacy classes, computer or internet security workshops, or maker programs that involve technology like 3D printers and digital sewing machines or other equipment like that. So this lecture will discuss library technology topics such as the digital divide, the balance between access and security, and social media. And then I'm also going to add some topics and go into some more detail on some topics that are not highlighted in the textbook chapter, like technology competencies for staff, digital libraries, and resources for teaching technology.
Digital inclusion is a very important topic for public libraries. It's about access and use of information technologies to access information. And this means anywhere that people would access information for educational purposes, for social services, for health, for community information, and just, social living. If you need to have technology skills to apply for unemployment or health insurance, like the Affordable Care Act, the website for health insurance, any of those things require technology to access the information. And so digital inclusion, it has to do with topics like digital equity and the digital divide, digital literacy, broadband equity, all of those things that go into making information available to people through technology. Web Junction links are in the module about digital inclusion. We've linked to digitalinclusion.org. There's a whole page of digital inclusion resources on this topic.
A bit more about the digital divide. A 2021 report from the Pew Research Center gives us some statistics. 93% of American adults use the internet, 77% have internet at home, and 85% of Americans own a smartphone. Those are pretty high numbers, which would make us think we've closed the gap on the digital divide. What these numbers don't tell us is the rest of the story. 93% of American adults use the internet and 77% have internet at home, but how many of those people use the internet on their smartphone and don't have computer skills? How many of those people know how to search the internet efficiently? How many people with a smartphone are confident with mobile technology skills beyond texting and basic Googling? How many seniors are using hand-me-down technology from their families that's old or not very fast or incompatible with modern technology services? This is where library technology services add value. Our technology is likely to be newer, faster, more reliable than what folks have at home. And we also provide technology assistance, which many people don't have at home. Libraries have the collective impact of a whole community's tax funding to provide research databases, online learning programs, and ebook services. So the digital divide is still a real issue among those experiencing poverty and among those who live in rural areas where either broadband companies physically can't get the equipment there to install broadband, or there aren't enough customers to be worthwhile for them. So people in rural areas may only have a smartphone and a cell signal to work with because the internet service just is not available. And because they're in rural areas, the cell signal may be weak as well. So these are just some examples of where we're at with the digital divide.
Emerging technologies in public libraries is sort of a multi-pronged thing. The idea for libraries as technology providers in communities where people are experiencing poverty, who maybe don't have access to broadband and to home electronics and things like that. The library may be the main technology provider for the citizens of the community, giving them the tools that they may not have access to at home at all. The other side of this idea is libraries as technology innovators, that the library can give patrons things to try before they buy, or things to try that they may never buy, like 3D printers, virtual reality, video game systems, maybe some of just those higher tech things that people may or may not have in their homes that they can learn about and experience at the library. Libraries need to give patrons a reason to use their services, to either come in the library and use our technology services or to access our technology services from home, our streaming services, our databases, whatever else we may provide. We have to be a little faster and a little better broadband than they have at home. We need to be more current and better software than they have access to at home. And more importantly than any of that, more help than they have at home. They can come to the library or call the library or chat with the library, whatever technology services you provide, that we can help them when they're at home, whether they have these devices and these services that they pay for themselves or not. They don't have necessarily the help at home, so they can call the library and get help with technology. And the library needs to offer more sources than what a basic Google search could provide, because anybody in many communities can do a basic Google search. The library provides access to, how to use the deep web and how to evaluate those resources and to use databases and some of the other resources that we provide that go beyond a Google search that people just don't have access to in their homes.
The textbook points out in a section about government information, but it applies to all subject areas, that with print you might not have the most current information, but you know that what you're accessing hasn't been modified. It's not likely to suddenly disappear. Digital information has both of those problems. The information might be modified by a third party or by hackers, and the digital content can be removed from the internet at the will of the host agency or replaced by a newer version when what you really wanted was the historical context and needed access to the old edition. Libraries don't own the majority of the digital content they provide to patrons. We don't own the ebooks, the e-audios, streaming music and movies. We don't own the articles in the databases or the online learning courses. We lease access to those products from third parties. So access is important to public libraries, and making access easy for patrons, since we paid for that access with public funding. Authentication is how libraries ensure that the people accessing the content we pay for are part of our service area. Usually, databases and other services require patrons to log in with a library card, and the prefix of that library's card numbers are authenticated by the servers. If you type in a number that can be authenticated between the library's patron database and the third-party service's content, you're granted access. It is very important that we safeguard patron information, though, so that authentication only looks for a pattern of digits or a certain type or length of number, and that third-party service doesn't actually have direct access to the patron database. We've discussed in a previous module about choosing the right platform for the right audience, so I won't get into that here. But the textbook discusses the reasons why libraries use social media. And the first is to connect with people who might be interested in the library's activities. The second is to share information about those activities or educate those people about what we have and what we do. The third is to give people a way to collaborate and participate in library activities. This could be by streaming programs on Facebook Live or posting discussion questions that people can respond to about what people are reading or watching. The fourth reason is to build a community of library users and create a space that looks inviting to non-users who may want to join. The section in the textbook about developing social media policies and plans was also good. It's important to have a plan to post regularly, to create a unified voice for the library, and to decide which platforms are best for different topics and different audiences. It takes time and effort to create a following, and even more time and effort to keep that following and create a space that people seek out or rely on for information. Policy-wise, some considerations are how to connect the library's mission and goals to its social media use, who will create content and have access to the library's profiles, who can communicate directly with patrons via the library's channels, how open or anonymous will the library be about the personal identities of the staff who do that work, who will vet the content before it goes live, how will negative comments be handled? What if an employee speaks badly about the library on their personal social media accounts? There are lots of good examples online of library social media policies. And finally, measuring the impact of a library's social media use is important. There has to be a return on investment between the resources the library puts into having a social media presence, like staff time and any paid accounts the library uses to manage their accounts, and the expected reach and outcomes of doing that work. So how many followers and likes and shares does the library need, or how many do they expect? How will they assess the impact of community building and participation from patrons on library goal achievement? How will they know that their use of social media has been successful?
All of the links this week are in the module. They're in various pages, so the links you see on this page are on the Library Technology Reports page within this week's module. So librarytechnology.org is a website authored by Marshall Breeding, which is a name that you will see a lot if you're reading anything about library technology or attending conferences or things like that. He's very active in library technology circles. So librarytechnology.org includes various technology reports that he writes and compiles. They cover major technology products in libraries like integrated library systems, library management systems, and library vendors and things like that. So the library technology guides have information about different technology products and services that are used by libraries, and they're super helpful if your library is looking for new software or new systems to replace what you had, or maybe upgrade, or just to try new services that you may not have offered in the past. The library systems reports are published annually by American Libraries Magazine. So it's an annual report that covers new developments and new trends in those various library systems. And then the Systems Librarian is a column in Computers and Libraries Magazine, and Marshall Breeding is allowed by contract to make those freely available 90 days after they appear in the print copy of Computers and Libraries Magazine. So then they appear at librarytechnology.org. And again, they just have lots of updates and news in the field of library technology systems. WebJunction also has staff technology competencies list that is linked in the module. Here I just want to say that staff have to be able to support the services that the library offers, the technology services, and help build a technology literate community. Those are very common missions that public libraries may have. So for example, if you offer public access computer terminals, the staff need to be able to help patrons log into those machines and print from those machines. If you offer e-resources like books or streaming services, someone on staff needs to be able to help patrons get started with those services. This is not to say that everyone on staff has to be a technology expert or be back-end administrators of every product and every service that the library offers, but they do need to have a basic familiarity with the technology products and services that the library offers in order to do basic troubleshooting with patrons, and also to promote those products to patrons, to help people find information in the the formats and the platforms that makes the most sense for the information they're seeking. They have to be able to know how to use some of these technology-based platforms. So my library offers Word, Excel, PowerPoint. We have the Adobe Creative Suite. We have Overdrive, Hoopla, Canopy. We have apps for databases we subscribe to, like Tumblebooks, services like Beanstack that we use for our summer reading program. We even have our own library app where you can access your library card account and do renewals and things like that. So as a librarian, I need to be able to introduce and promote those services to our patrons and do some basic troubleshooting. My library is lucky enough to have a librarian dedicated to administrating these services, but we still need to do basic troubleshooting, and promotion with patrons before we call her in. So again, not to say that everyone has to be an expert on all of these things. We just need to have a general understanding and be familiar enough to do some basic troubleshooting with patrons, to get them on, hooked up and introduced to these products, to understand what kind of information they can find in these platforms, and help them get started using the services that the library offers.
The difference between makerspaces and digital media labs are that makerspaces focus on making physical things, using tools or sewing machines or Cricut machines or whatever. Digital media labs are focused on creating digital media, that is broadcasting, podcasting, green screens, file type conversions, or graphic artwork. The module has links to a few well-known makerspaces and digital media labs, and I've listed a few on the slide here too. But browse through that page of links in the module for even more details. There's some really cool places doing some really cool things out there. My library, the Plymouth District Library, has a makerspace we call the Lab that is more focused on making than digital media. We have 3D printers, a digital embroidery machine, digital sewing machines, Cricut, heat press and mug presses, sublimation printer, a large format printer, we have a laser cutter, and things like that. So those are just some examples of makerspaces and digital media labs that are part of public library technology services. There's a page of links to these digital libraries in the module, and there are all kinds of digital libraries online that are, for the most part, freely available. You can really go down a rabbit hole browsing through some of these collections. Some digital libraries are behind paywalls or only accessible with university credentials or special authentication, but this list is full of digital libraries you can browse through all you like. Digital libraries are exactly what they sound like. They are items that have been scanned or created in a digital format that makes them accessible online. There are digital music libraries and movie libraries, digital newspaper archives, photography collections, all kinds of things. So browse through that page in the module and have some fun with this one.
TechSoup ranks right up there with WebJunction. It's a nonprofit that works with technology companies to provide cheaper access to software and hardware, training, consultants, and tech support for libraries. The website, TechSoupForLibraries.org, has a blog. It has links to events and webinars. There are forums where you can ask questions or just learn from other people asking questions. There are articles and how-tos. TechSoup is a really great place to start for library technology topics.
Here's another list that's linked in the module, full of resources for technology training. All of these resources provide easy, clear handouts, course outlines, screenshots, videos, instructional resources for both staff and patrons to learn technology topics. Digital Learn has short video courses on all kinds of computer topics like intro to email, using Google Maps, using telehealth, using Facebook, job skills, security topics, cloud storage, and a lot more. Tech Life Unity, which used to be called Tech Boomers, they had a recent rebranding, is similar, and they have short courses that are mostly video. Anyone who wants to learn how to use eBay or Uber or shop online or how to listen to a podcast, any tech topic you can think of, really. GCF Global is a bit more task-oriented and slightly less about general internet services than the other two. They have YouTube playlists as well as more text and screenshot-based learning. They cover topics like Microsoft Office and Google tools, job searching and career planning, money management tools, smartphones, cloud-based services, and a lot more. If your library happens to subscribe to LinkedIn Learning, that's another great resource. It's pretty expensive to subscribe to, but they have video-based courses on technology and business topics that are really professionally done. So these tools can be really helpful at the reference desk to get a patron started when you don't have time to walk them through these kinds of things. Or if your library doesn't offer in-person classes, it's a nice substitution to use these tools as go-tos. You can also use these tools as outlines for creating your own in-person training programs. So give these links a look in the module. Okay, so we have reached the end of this lecture, so let's do a brief wrap-up of what we've learned this week. We talked about digital inclusion and the digital divide, emerging technologies and services that libraries provide that are sort of value-added for patrons, issues of access versus security issues, social media, policies and plans for how to use social media most efficiently, library technology reports, which is more the staff or ILS side of library technology. Staff technology competencies. What do staff need to know versus, just need to be familiar with? Difference between makerspaces and digital media labs and some examples of both. We looked at a list of digital libraries. We talked about what TechSoup is, and there was a list of some technology training resources. Have a great week, everybody.